We're going to get started, and we are going to be recording. Um, right. So let's do this thing. So I'm Hazel, and I am a librarian at Curtis Memorial Library. And today I get the delight and pleasure of chatting with Zach, who is wonderful, another human who we've cold emailed and said, would you pretty please come share your knowledge with us? So that's why we're recording today, to hopefully learn a bunch of new stuff we hadn't thought of, or to think about the world of sharing and the sharing economy in a different way, because I'm really excited about today for personal reasons and professional reasons. One is we copied you. So thank you for coming up with this clever idea. So for a long time, I, for example, have thought this tool, this pass system at public libraries has been underutilized. And because wouldn't it be great if we had passes to everything, like everything you needed, passes to bicycles, passes to kayaks, passes to gear. And I hadn't found anyone who was really using it like that yet, until I was doing research for the Shareable series about this idea, and I stumbled upon the Denver Tool Library, which is where Zach is from. And I was like, yes, they're doing it. We couldn't make it work out to have you guys chat in that series, but I was so very excited to see you chatting with the National Tool Library Alliance, and then coming here to chat with us today. And I think this model, for those of you who don't know about the traditional public and kind of academic library systems, in those systems you could go to your local library, you can trot on over and you can say, man, I wish I could go to this local museum, and your librarian will say, no problemo, we have a pass that you can take. You can check out our pass out of the library, and you can go to that museum for either free or a discounted amount. And so Zach and his clever team have figured out how to do that so that their public library lends passes to their tool library. So in addition to learning about the Denver Tool Library today, we are going to get to hear more about this pass system, with the hopes that folks like me and many of you can copy it in different ways that work for our communities. In my community, full disclosure, Zach, I couldn't copy you exactly. Our maker spaces weren't willing to do that yet, or our tool libraries weren't willing to do that yet, but or our maker spaces weren't, but we have a gear library. So we are actually lending a pass so that you can go to your local gear library. So, but we'll talk about that at another time.
Great.
So, yay. So let's see. Zach, I remember you had a presentation that you even made. Gold star. Thank you so much. I'm going to make sure that you can share all participants. And so you should now have sharing privileges. Let's see. I'll double check.
There we go. It
Awesome.
looks like it's working. Just get it set up here real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
All righty. Can you all see that all right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll start then. Great. Thanks so much, Hazel. Thanks for having me. I am so psyched to be here. I love like knowledge share in any type of situation where we can chat and figure out, hey, we're doing this, hey, we're doing this. This is what we've, broken down and seen what works and what doesn't work. Just to, save everybody time, especially in the world of accessibility and trying to make sure that folks get what they can get. We're all trying to share here. So today I'm going to be talking about the Denver Tool Library and our Denver Public Library program, where we kind of collaborate on a pass system. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Zach. I work at the Tool Library. I'm a tool librarian. So that's basically a part-time role, anywhere from like 5 to 15 hours a week. I also do a lot of our social media stuff, but the tool librarian role itself is basically we have between 5 and 7,000 tools, and we have just under 1,000 members. And so when folks want to sign up, we're the ones who handle all of the logistics and give them a tour and give them a zine and make sure that they feel really welcome. And then also when they want to check tools out or check tools in, we help them with that. We also work on cleaning the tools, making it as accessible an area as possible, as well as empowering education. So I have a lot of background in construction, woodworking. I grew up working on a white-tailed deer farm a lot. I had friends who owned a white-tailed deer farm back in Ohio, and I spent a lot of time there. So a lot of people poured a lot of information into me at a young age about tools, about how to use tools safely and how to make different things. And so this is like a really incredible place that was founded 10 years ago by our founder, Sarah Steiner, who's incredible. And it's been like this magical like community that really focuses on keeping folks safe and empowered and excited about tools, about, being able to do stuff. So like it says there, I am from Ohio. I moved from Ohio to Denver a little bit over a year ago now, so I'm still getting my sea legs. But I love it out here. I loved Ohio. Grew up in Ohio, but I like the mountains more than the plains personally. I'm also a passionate tinkerer. I love just tinkering on anything that I can get my hands on. Growing up outside of all of those things, I also would take apart my dad's watches, and he would get really mad, and then I would put them back together, and he would be a little more relieved. But like I just couldn't help myself from, if I saw something interesting mechanically, taking it apart and trying to figure out how it works and putting it back together. So yeah, so that's a little bit of who I am. Again, yeah, like it says, not to get too philosophical. So I'm going to dive into a little bit about what we do at the Tool Library. Our mission statement: the Denver Tool Library is a nonprofit that provides affordable access to tools, skills, and workspace for home improvement, artistic expression, community building, and more. And we have several programs to help do this. One of the things in this photo here is this fine human right here, Eli, is one of our tool librarians as well, and they had the idea of bringing a repair fair to the tool library. So this was our first ever repair fair just a few weeks ago, and it went great. We had a little bit over 60 repairs in a few hours, and I think over 20 volunteers helping fix stuff, and it was just very, very cool. But the core of what we do is we rent tools, we have classes, and we empower folks. One thing I didn't include on here is this back workshop where this photo was taken is also an open workshop on Thursdays and Saturdays. So you have to take a safety class and everything, and then you pay for hours, but it gives folks access to the bigger machines, your bigger joiner, planer, table saw, etc. So let's dive into renting tools. So like I said, we have between 5 and 7,000 tools. The reason I know that is because I recently did an inventory map of where everything was. And so I painstakingly went through and went through a lot of the tools. And then also the entire team went through a huge inventory sweep to try to make it more accessible, which everybody did just such a good job on. The way that it works is it's all membership based. You pay annual fee. Our most popular is $150 a year, and that will get one person that can check out tools, and they can check out up to 10 tools at a time. 3 of them can be power tools. We do not include pneumatic tools in that, so which I know this is getting into a little bit of the weeds, but we don't include if you get an air compressor and you want a nail gun as well to go with that compressor, we're not going to count the nail gun as a power tool. That's just one of your 10. And we're really empowered. One thing that Sarah does really well, as well as Tyler, our manager, is empowers us to make decisions of what feels good in the moment and what is serving like the community best. And so if somebody comes in and they're really working on a specific project and it's really going to put them in a bind, and they could just have that one more socket and it would be 11 tools, we're going to let them have the 11th tool. It's a definitely like people first model at the tool library, which I really appreciate. But everything defaults to a 1 week rental. You can extend certain tools online. You can also give us a call or shoot us an email, and a lot of times we can extend tools for you. We have certain high like priority tools, like in the spring, tillers, if you believe it, are constantly out. So we have like a holds list for that, so you can't extend those. But that kind of leads into late fees, which we do have. But we during like intro tours, one of the things that I like to say a lot is like we never want to charge late fees. This is not an area where we're really trying to rake it in. We've tried to make it as affordable as possible so that it's just keeping people responsible to the community. A lot of times if somebody comes in and they're like, oh my gosh, I was out of town and I couldn't get it to a friend or whatever, like again with that empowerment, we're able to either cut that late fee down, or if it's a couple bucks, just say, hey, don't worry about it, we'll put a note in your account that we waived on this, and you just don't have to worry about it this time. So it's again huge like people first system, and that's like a culture that's been pushed over the past 10 years that this tool library has been around, which is like truly incredible. This is like, yeah, something I feel very lucky to be a part of. So that's how renting tools generally works. And then we have classes. We have all sorts of classes and such incredible instructors. We've got welding classes, woodworking, know your home, know your car, beekeeping. Uh, we have some like stained glass classes. We have electrical, understanding like home electrical stuff classes, and like literally dozens more. And as a tool librarian, I've taken a handful of classes and they've all been incredible. I specifically took our welding 1 class because, as I said, I grew up on helping out on farms, and so I did some stick welding, but with no education on how to stick weld, no safety equipment. So I was just holding it out and kind of looking away and hoping for the best. So to be able to like have a space where I feel safe to now ask those questions and learn how to properly weld has been like really cool, and something that has like benefited me for sure, as well as now when folks come in to rent, like we have 2 flux core welders. When they come in to rent those, I feel very confident being able to say, hey, here's all the other things that you need with it, and here's all the proper procedures for it, just to let them know, so then everybody's going home safe. So we also have a lot of classes for folks who don't feel safe in workshops. This is a huge thing for us as well. Especially marginalized groups of folks that have historically been pushed out of workshop classes or anything to do with woodworking, metalworking. We really do a lot, really a lot of folks do a lot around the tool library, and like members and community members do a lot to make it a space that is safe for everybody to come and learn and not be judged, and be themselves fully. That's really like the thesis of that. Classes can start at $75. I believe that is like our woodworking safety course is around 75. It might be 100 actually, but I think it's 75 still. And it can go all the way up to, I believe one of the higher end welding classes is a little bit over $200, mostly because you get into TIG welding and that material cost goes up. But all of our instructors are like incredibly well vetted and just very kind folks that are very passionate. I think the like culture attracts a lot of people to that wouldn't normally be teaching in an environment like this. And for like the pay, because we try to keep the classes so cheap. But they want to be a part of this. And I think that like really brings in really good people. So then our values, kind of the mission here. So this is a list of all of our values. I won't go into all of them in super detail. But like obviously inclusivity and accessibility are huge for us. We just did that inventory project to clear up walkways and make sure that we have all the tools that we say we have online available for folks. Education and empowerment is huge. That's probably one of my favorite parts of the job is, somebody comes in and they're like, hey, I had one guy come in asking how to cut horse stall mats, the thick rubber mats that are in horse stalls. And I just so happened to have cut several horse stalls in my life, which was awesome. So we're like talking, and I'm showing him, for anybody wondering, you want to score it with a knife of some sort, and get the like score edge away so that it looks kind of like this, and then you go in with a jigsaw and cut it from there to get a nice clean cut. And as I was explaining it to him, like, hey, this is what I've done before, I had another guy pop his head around and be like, are you guys talking about cutting horse saw mats? I tried to do that a year ago and it went terribly. And so then having situations where I get to use silly things that I've learned in my life, but also having situations where I can say, hey, I actually don't know how to do that. Let's hop on the computer and look together. And let me show you how I would look for that. So then next time something like this comes up, you know what words to use in Google, and what are kind of the nomenclature of this. And seeing some folks like start at the tool library, and be very timid and kind of uncertain about any of their projects. And they're like, I just want to make a cutting board, to then a handful of months later, they just like work their way up. And they're like, yeah, I just built garden beds for myself on a Tuesday. And you're like, wow, this is like so cool. They're like so empowered and so excited about it. We obviously love community spaces. That's a huge part of it. Making sure that this is like a third space for a lot of folks that they can come and spend time at. We always welcome people to come and walk around. So if any of y'all are ever in town in Denver, please stop by and say hi. As long as we're open, we're thrilled to have you. If you want to just come and poke around and look at the tools, or come and chat with us, that's what we're here for. Art and creativity is huge. We definitely want people to feel like they can express themselves, and push boundaries in terms of that creativity, and try to grow as much as you can in a safe place. Self-reliance and DIY kind of goes along with what I was talking about earlier of, empowering folks to take that step and be like, okay, well, now I know how to figure this out at least. Sustainability is huge. That is actually our focus for this quarter. We do projects each quarter, and sustainability is a big one for this quarter. So we each have our different projects. I believe Eli gets to count their repair fair as sustainability, which makes a lot of sense. And then success and failure. Another big thing for us is we want a safe place for people to fail. You learn a lot more by failing than you do your successes. Everybody's heard it a million times, but for it to be a space for folks to actually enact that is a much more difficult ask than just saying, hey, fail forward. But we want to foster that space. And then of course, sharing and affordability. We do try to make this as affordable as possible. As well as making sure that we're paying folks well. I feel very happy with how I'm taken care of as a tool librarian. I know our teachers do. And a lot of that is like exemplary in the community as well. We have a lot of folks who will have like a late fee or something, and we'll kind of judge the situation and be like, all right, don't worry about like the $6 or whatever. And they'll feel like very convicted and be like, no, I need to pay the $6 because I need to support this place. Which is very cool to have that community buy-in into that. And I don't think very common. People aren't usually jumping to pay late fines. This is an old photo of some of our lovely staff. Scott fixes a lot of our tools here in the quarter. Tyler is our manager. Ian is one of our teachers and does an incredible job of kind of fixing everything. He's always around and just like such a joy to be around. And then I can go through everybody else. There's Sarah, our founder, who again is just incredible, as well as Eli, who you saw earlier. Garrett does a lot of our website stuff and has been around since basically day one. So we have like such incredible folks here that really resemble and embody our values as well. Now let's talk about the actual Denver Public Library. I love libraries, which I'm sure is no surprise to any of you. I'm sure you all love libraries just as much, if not more than I do. Growing up, I was a big library kid. My parents always took me to the library back in Columbus, Ohio. And that was like just such a like integral part of my upbringing, all the different events and stuff. And they actually had cultural passes as well at the Columbus Library, fairly early on. So like that's how we would go to the zoo or like you said, the museum, Hazel. Like it was such a like I guess the word is equalizer in terms of accessibility. I had uh rich friends who were always going to the zoo and whatnot, and we were able to like experience those things a lot in part because of the library. So the Denver Public Library is established in 1889. They have 27 locations. This photo is of the main library, which recently opened back up after a few years of construction. We actually went on a tour as the Tool Library. We had a handful of our staff go and take a tour of the new upgraded library, and it's gorgeous and incredible. And I got stuck in the patent room for too long because I love a well-designed patent. Um, but and they also have idea labs. They have several idea labs, which are really cool. The one in the main library has sewing machines, cross or what's the word? Quilting machines, 3D printers, computers, laser cutters, and like soldering tools and all sorts of stuff. So we partner with them generally just by, we continually talk to them and are saying, hey, what are you seeing? What do you think you need help with? And also they have a handful of our flyers and zines. So when they run into people who need a power drill, they send them over to us, and vice versa. If somebody comes into our shop and is like, hey, I need access to a 3D printer for 2 hours, I always send them over to the Idea Lab, So it is like a very symbiotic system in that sense. And that's kind of just like the baseline of it. But we're very grateful to have such an incredible, like large library system here in Denver. But then going into the actual program, we'll dive into how it works, success stories, and pitfalls. We do have pitfalls that we're still working through, and just like any system, right? We're still growing in, figuring it out, and we'd love any suggestions on any ideas you'll have as well. But this will at least hopefully give you a little bit of an idea of what avenues we've gone down. Um, so the way that works from a like renter's side of things is you go to the library, you have your library card, and you reserve a pass from the library. There is a waiting list. That's one of the pitfalls, is that we don't have enough passes in the system. We currently have 10 passes in the system, and the need is obviously there for much more. So then once your number gets called and they say, hey, your pass is ready, you pick up a pass from the public library. The pass looks like this. It's meant to look like a CD in a CD case. And they are numbered. And so then you take that pass, you bring it to us, and we have you fill out a handful of information, and then you pick up tools for 1 week. So you get the pass, like I think a lot of libraries are defaulting to the 3 weeks, like 21 days of renting or of having something out. Similar to that, the pass is 3 weeks, but our rental periods are only 1 week. So if you get the pass and you're like, hey, I don't actually have a list of my supplies, you can wait a week, or you can wait a week and a half, and then come in and exchange that and get that week of tool rentals. So then once you pick up the tools, you work on your project. Throughout that week, you're able to come and exchange tools. So if you come in on a Saturday and get 7 tools and you're like, oh man, I actually need this tool or that tool, you can come in on our next open day, which would be Sunday or Tuesday. And then you can exchange tools as long as you stay at that maximum of 10 tools total, 3 of them power tools. And then they all are due 1 week at the end. Again, this is something where we get to use our best judgment, and we're very grateful to be at a place that we can, where if somebody is like, hey, I rented this out and I need it for like an extra 2 days, we'll just extend it. If they've been honest with us about everything and you know, they're a part of the community. If we can help folks out in the community, we're going to. Um, so then you bring the tools back. And once you bring the tools back, we give you the pass back. And then you take that pass back to the Denver Public Library. So one thing we often tell folks is, hey, make sure to buffer some time in order to get that pass back to the library, so that you're not coming in on the very last day at 3 p.m. when maybe your branch closes at 4, and you need to then sprint over. Maybe just, you know, give it a day buffer is what we usually recommend at least. But some more information on how it works, some more of the more nitty gritty details here. DPL does The public library does pay us for passes each year, and that was a part of the conversation this year, was growing that, and the funds just weren't there this year, which is totally fine. We are at 10 passes currently. These are set up as cultural passes, and so I think when I was talking to Sarah, our founder, about it, she had specifically mentioned that it was super easy to set up because it's set up as a cultural pass. So if you already have a cultural pass in your system, this can be a much lower lift than you probably think it is. We do take driver's license and credit card info when they present the pass to us in our renting tools. This is just a liability thing. We also have them sign a waiver. The waiver, we have everybody who rents tools sign, basically saying if you use the tool wrong or if something happens, it's not on us. You know, we're trying to empower you, but also we want everybody to be safe. When the pass is returned, we do delete all of that information, the driver's license and credit card information, from our system. I've done this, you know, 100 times in the past year at least, so I can guarantee to you that every time we're deleting it, and even if somehow something slips through, the next time that pass is used, it gets brought up and we have to put that info in, so we have to delete the prior information. So that's a little bit of a nice safety check to make sure that we're not storing folks' information unnecessarily. So those are some of the details on there. We have some great success stories. We've had new members come from this program. We've had new community partners come from this program. More accessibility, and one thing I really want to hit on is financial aid. I remember like 2 months into me starting at the tool library, we had a person come in with the public library pass, and they were lovely, like super kind, and gave them the tour, showed them everything, and they were super excited about it. And they're like, okay, I have this one project, I have more projects coming up, but like I'll try to get the pass again. And when they came back to drop off the tools, I talked to them for a little while, and I mentioned that we do have financial aid if the 150 is, like, you know, a burden. That's a lot of money, you know. So they were like, yeah, that would be really nice. So we sat there, and I pulled it up on our computer, and they filled it out, and they ended up getting a full membership. So now they are a continued member of the tool library, and I see them quite often, and they're just so stoked to be there. And you know, from a like community standpoint, like they wouldn't have known about our financial aid system more than likely if we didn't have this system in place for them to have that free rental. And then also from a business standpoint, like that person is a huge ambassador for the tool library and the public library now, you know, and that's like such a beautiful thing, you know. Like we're all very excited about libraries as well as like especially our libraries. And like I don't stop talking about it, which is why I'm excited to be here, because I could yap for hours about this. But the big thing is that we want people to be excited about the accessibility portion of it and the community portion of it, right? So that was a huge success story. We've had like folks who run bike shops that have used the pass before and then been like, hey, can we collaborate on this or that program? And we've been able to do so, which has been awesome. And then we've had a lot of folks come in and just be like, hey, I want to try this out. This was a free way to try this out. And then decide that they want to become full-fledged members. And then obviously the big success is more accessibility, more folks who don't have access to tools, don't have access to the ability to do something themselves, now having access to that. So those are the fun ones. That's like the, get you really, really hyped up stories. Those are the ones that give you the goosebumps of how excited you are about the community that you're in. Um, but there are current pitfalls. Just like any program, there are definitely pitfalls. One portion of it is a communication breakdown that we're actually ideating on, where I think this is common with a lot of cultural passes, but people assume that all they need to do is show up and show their library card, and that gets them a week. And so really explaining the system is important. We just had somebody this past weekend come in, and they were told at their library branch that they had access to this now. So they came in with their library card, and they were like, all right, 1 week of free tools. And we had to explain to them that maybe the librarian like explained it and they weren't listening, or they kind of jumped the gun on it. But the good thing is that we have such a nice environment here that we were able to talk to them, help them understand how the system works. And they actually ended up being like, hey, we're just going to purchase a 1 week trial of it anyways. And they left very happy, and we left very happy. So it is something that you have to do a little bit more work educating folks on it, just because there's not a ton of information on it, and you kind of have to dig for it. So that's one area where, especially on social media, trying to make some nice graphics or flyers or something to educate folks on the program itself, so that people that maybe don't know that they can use it can engage in it, and the folks that think that it is just showing up with a library card get to save their time and frustration. We don't want anybody walking away frustrated. Like that's not what anybody wants here. Another confusing current pitfall, is the 1 week versus 3 weeks. We do 1 week rentals of tools, and the library does 3 weeks. So that like dichotomy there can confuse people. Again, I think this is just going to be a constant thing of trying to educate folks and give out proper resources with information. And then the last thing is the waiting list. The last time I checked, I believe we had 170 people on the waiting list, which is tough. That is not great. One solution is more passes, of course. We are open to any idea really on any solutions for this, but the big thing right now is possibly getting more passes, and ensuring that that system continues to flow well, because I'm sure you all have seen it, where somebody rents something, or they say they want something and then they don't come pick it up, and you have to wait a certain amount of days for them to not come pick it up until you can move on to the next person. And you have that 170 times over, and all of a sudden you have an over a year long wait list, even if people do come and pick it up versus if they don't. So that is definitely our biggest pitfall currently, and the thing that we're really trying to ideate around. And then lastly, I just kind of want to open it up to Hazel and everybody, and questions, comments, and maybe your favorite tool. Mine was on the front page. It was a pipe wrench. I love a big pipe wrench. I used to do some plumbing stuff, and that was my best friend for that. So
I love it. I think I used to say really, a drill with decent torque, but
mm,
now I am pretty partial to some of the weirder tools. Like we have one that's it's called a nut wizard. So you roll it around on the ground. I don't know if you guys have those, and then it picks up different types of nuts so that you don't have to
yeah,
step on them. And then
yeah.
we run programs with them here so that you can like make your own, acorn flour and things like that.
Oh,
So
cool. That's awesome.
yeah, so
Super cool.
it's grown in such a way that I certainly never expected, and so that kind of gives me joy whenever I see someone running around with a nut wizard.
And very
Um,
cool. Love it.
oh gosh, okay, so I have a bunch of questions for you, Zach. Thank you. This
Yeah.
was
Okay.
so great. And please, the rest of you guys, Lydia, Chris, Emily, Gregory, Julie, Karen, don't hesitate to. I know some of you are in stealth mode, totally fine. You're welcome to be here. Sometimes, Zach, a lot of us, I know you'll understand this, are on desk at the same time, but if like no one's
Mhm.
there, we can be doing something while listening to this, but we can't like
Right.
sit and watch.
Totally.
That's what a lot of these librarians often are doing. But please don't hesitate to type in your questions. So much of what you're saying I related to. I think so many people here would on this
Mhm.
call.
Yeah.
Caring about accessibility. It's all about community. Uh, we're in it for the impact. But then there's some then challenges that make it a little tricky at times. I think your inventory is so impressive, like, having that many thousands of tools. Do you ever do you catalog each and every one of your tools, or is it more like go get a screwdriver from the pile?
Yeah, so that's a great question because we run into this all the time, especially in our inventory system where we inventory a lot of our tools. We inventory the
Yeah,
vast majority of our tools, but like individual sockets won't have
yeah.
a corresponding number to them. So I would say probably out of the 5 to 7 thousand, probably like 4 to 5 thousand are inventoried. And then there's a couple thousand of like sockets or I believe all of our screwdrivers are currently inventoried, but like trowels, stuff that we handwrite all of our numbers onto each tool.
Got it. Okay.
So it is an issue with shovels in the summer where we got to
Yeah.
like find a strategic place on the shovel where people don't usually put their hands. Um, and so some things like we'll run in and out of inventory, but we typically as we're checking stuff out or checking stuff in, we'll take a double look at things and say, hey, we need to rewrite the number on here. But a lot of it is inventoried, but except for your small stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the librarians on the call, if the tool library system is pretty different than the traditional library system, uh, often, not always, but it is a little different in a few things. Sometimes they don't use barcodes. Sometimes they're using QR codes. Sometimes they're using an Excel spreadsheet. The Denver Tool Library, correct, Zach, uses MyTurn.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So MyTurn is a well-known piece of software that was developed by Gene, who uses or who ran a tool library first, helped co-found one a tool library, and then was like, man, we really need some software for this. Now there are other competitors who also have other different types of inventory systems, but Gene's has been used, including Full Bias. We use Gene's system as well, but we only use a itty bitty portion of his system. We just use it for display, but it's
Mhm.
actually a full IMLS. So it actually can check in tools, check out tools. It can do greenhouse gas statistics, all sorts of things. Um, so Emily asks, so they received a grant from IMLS for to recreate the makerspace. Oh, that's exciting,
Yeah.
Emily. Wow. Yeah. So different, so you would love some different ideas about different maker spaces, what exists elsewhere and what ideas, to steal. That is really exciting. Okay. So, that's a good question. So Zach, what about, so you have this interesting tool library that also teaches classes and it's also a makerspace. I'm so jealous of some of your classes. I would
Yeah.
love to take welding again. I haven't taken it since high school. We had this amazing shop teacher, but this is like not going to happen at our public library. And I think
Yeah.
that's an interesting dichotomy of what a tool library can do and what a public library can do. For example,
Mhm.
we don't lend a lot of saws with blades, but I know
Mhm.
you lend a bunch of different saws.
Yeah. All sorts of saws. Yeah.
Have you run into any troubles with, say, a public library patron? I know you've only been doing this for a few years, but a public
Mhm.
library patron coming in and going to use some of those saws and not having the appropriate training, or use of your makerspace and not having appropriate training?
Yeah, definitely. I will say the makerspace, you do have to take a safety
Okay,
class in order to use the makerspace. So that $75 woodworking class, and they
got
teach
it.
you how to use all of the tools in our workshop makerspace area. In terms of like folks coming from the library, we definitely run into that, like not super often, but it does happen. I think the biggest thing is we can't control anything once they walk out of the door. But when they're inside and they are talking about, um, they're going to do this thing or that thing, where there's like definitely opportunities there to be like, oh, well, make sure that you have this safety, like, PPE or that, while you're doing that. And that usually opens the door to more questions. So I really try to push of like, hey, if you're taking out an angle grinder and this is your first time like being here, have you used it before? Can I show you how to use it safely? Can I show you what I would take with it in order to make sure that you're being safe? So that comes a lot of on the tool librarian side, rather than anywhere else. So that I think that's how we're able to feel fairly secure in that. But it is like definitely always in the back of my head when we have somebody new sign up or we have somebody like that, coming from the library saying, hey, I'm gonna start, cutting wood. I'm like, all right, have you cut wood before,
I so get it. The angle grinder and the table saw are the ones we are like, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Not yet. Not that, but we want to have a tool library that does it just for that extra level
Mhm.
of safety. We did do those at our tool library, just to be clear,
Cool.
both of
Yeah,
those.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you have had that conversation with humans and are able to
Mhm.
kind of do that teaching component. So when I talked to the Oakland Tool Library, the Oakland Public Library Tool Library, as well as
Mhm.
Berkeley, they've both mentioned, because they've been doing this since the 70s, they both said, oh yeah, we've heard stories about people who cut off their finger. Have you,
Mhm.
but I always ask, just in case, when I'm talking to a tool library, have you had
Mhm.
any problematic issues yet?
Not that I've seen. Luckily, I
Yay!
mean, we've had people come in and say, "Oh man, I had a close call or
Yeah,
something." But growing up
good.
in construction on farms, I knew a lot of farmers with only a
Yeah.
few fingers, and
Yeah.
a lot of construction folks losing a couple toes or something.
You and me both. You and me
Yeah.
both. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it is a reality of the situation, but I always like to kind of reassure folks, like, again, everyone's taking safety really seriously.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to get to some of these questions. So Emily, her question was more about looking for makerspace kind of inspiration in their public library. Based on your experience at the tool library and with the public library, are there things that you have seen that have been just really, really popular, or that you're like, wow, I never thought of that, that I'm really glad we have here at the tool library, or I can point people to at the public library?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll give you a couple places to look up around Denver too, because we partner with a couple other maker
Cool.
spaces as well. The Idea Lab is definitely the best in terms of accessibility, for like specifically 3D printing. I think that that's like a big thing and something that we've talked about getting into, but since the library does such a good job at it, as well as some other maker spaces around, we are easily able to be like, hey, yeah, this is a great place to go do that. I think a lot of like sewing, and like stitchery is a big thing, for a
Mhm.
lot of maker spaces that a lot of people kind of overlook or don't think needs included until you find a bunch of people that are excited about creating their own clothing or mending clothing. And I think one thing that I've seen in Denver at least is that community is definitely there and that need is definitely there. But other places to look at, the Idea Labs at the Denver Public Library are awesome. Also around the corner, we've started to partner with a place called Den Hack, and they're more on the tech side of maker spaces. So they have a woodworking
Mm.
shop and stuff, but they have really high-end CNC machines, and they have two whole 3D printing rooms where it's just like wall to wall with the most advanced 3D printers and everything, and a lot of coding, and
Yeah.
a lot more tech-based stuff, Raspberry Pi projects and stuff like that. There's also Tinkermill, which is a little bit north of us, and that is one of the biggest and best maker spaces in the country, like in my experience at least, and I think they've been voted a handful of times. So I would definitely look into them as well, for inspiration, because they do a really good job of having uh areas for everything. But I think honestly what it comes down to is space, and having enough space for multiple people to be working in a space at once safely. I think that one thing that we run into at the tool library, and I think the Idea Lab also probably runs into, is we're always limited by space. We always want more options to be there. A lot of our woodworking stuff, you know, you have 20 people back there working on different projects. All of a sudden, you have to, you know, start slowing the roll of folks coming in. And that happens regularly for us. So our shop monitors have a system to let us know at the front whether or not they can accept more people in the workshop. So that's like, that's the biggest thing for us is maximizing space if you have a small space, or if you have the opportunity to get a slightly larger space. Definitely that's worth like the investment, in my opinion.
Cool. Cool. Great info. I'm typing
Yeah.
here as I talk to you
Yeah.
to take notes of like, I have to look this up later. Um, so it's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through some of these other questions and then I'm going to loop back around to mine if there are not more. Which is, can you talk a little bit about late fees and
Mhm.
how much they are? And then Chris also asks, is there any pushback from local home improvement stores, or do you partner with them as well? So what are those two things?
Yeah, totally. So late fees, I believe they start at 50 cents a day.
Mhm.
That's for your sockets, for your screwdrivers, stuff like that. And then I believe they max out at $3 a day. I should have this
Yeah.
memorized, but I don't. But I
Okay.
believe I believe for like your table saw and your tillers and stuff like that, it maxes out at $3 a day. That you are late. Again, there's a lot of grace given in late
Yeah.
fees, especially if somebody has a certain situation. I've had folks say that, you know, hey, my wife went into labor. I'm like, I'm not going to charge you a late fee if your wife just went into labor and you know, you just had a baby and you're a week late. Don't worry about that. You've got other bills to worry about in our healthcare system. So like there is a lot of flexibility in it, but a lot of it is, you know, ensuring that everybody's educated on that there is late fees. So there are like consequences to keeping resources away from the community longer than you probably should have them. But very rarely do we have to charge like large late fees. We've had some where people will come in and they're, you know, several months late and it's $250, and they're, you know, having a really hard time with it, and we're like, hey, you know, what feels good? What can we both walk away from this and feel good about, like, you knowing that
Yeah.
this isn't, you know, an action that's nice to the community in the future, and like also you not being financially burdened by the tool library. That's the last thing we want.
Oh, 100%.
Um,
So many of the similar ethics, right? This is why
yeah,
we're gonna all work together. Um,
totally.
so you know, on that note, are you able to share how much that the Denver Public Library is able to pay you for a pass? Has that changed over time?
I don't believe it's changed over
Yeah.
time. And so it is $250 a pass, which is about equal to our one of our more premium memberships per pass. Um, which is great. It does, like, honestly, it adds a lot of work for our tour librarians. I do
Yeah.
a lot of work throughout the year, and I'm usually just there on Saturdays to get folks set up and excited about the tool library. But so in terms of, like, you know, input versus output, it's a whole thing. But like at the end of the day, again, going back to those successes, you know, it's something that I think everybody's excited about.
Well, it's something that's really interesting because actually that's much cheaper than I thought you were going to say.
Mhm. Mm,
For much, just because of based on other museum passes would be around the same, could be around the same thing.
mhm.
But you know, you're talking about a lot of tools
Yeah.
versus, you know, so it's and a lot of work on that end. You know, on that note, Lydia asked. Um, and this is something we as public librarians struggle with all the time versus with my tool library hat on, it was a different answer.
Mhm.
You know, my understanding is you don't vet your members for membership, but if someone signs up and you have some misgivings about them, like, ooh, I don't know if they're capable of, for example, sometimes I'm trying to help someone on the computer and I truly, because of whatever reason, their shakiness or their mental capacity, their mental, way they view the world, they really have a hard time moving that mouse because they don't have
Mhm.
that education. And I'm not going to be able to give them the level of education or experience they need to solve that problem necessarily in the way that I would love to be able to help them solve that problem. And so I might just end up printing something for them. Have you
Mhm.
run into that at the tool library, where you have had some misgivings and you're like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't do power tools?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they're definitely, I think one thing that the tool library now has like a reputation of being a very welcoming environment. And so I think a
Yeah.
lot of people that are coming in with that hesitation or like lack of education are coming in
Mhm.
knowing that and being very aware. So what we get more often is people coming in and being like, I've never used this tool before. I'm scared to use this tool. What's going to happen? Am I going to get hurt? You know?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I will, if I have the time, do a live demo of a tool. Like I did a weed whacker live demo last weekend. We went out back and I showed them how to weed whack. But you don't always have time for that, totally.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times it is like uh, empowering folks to say, hey, look on YouTube. I want you to do like probably an hour's worth of research on YouTube, just watching videos of people using this. And I'll write down, this is what you should look up. These are a few people that really do a good job of explaining these things. And only when you feel confident do you like pick up the tool, essentially. So we can't, like I said, we can't really control a lot of that
Yep.
in terms of, folks not, doing things safely or whatever, but we can control, making sure that folks at least have tools to find ways to do things safely if they want to. Um, Now, that being said, we do have folks that aren't like a fit in terms of our community come in. A lot of people are very respectful and very kind, and I'm sure as all of you know, like the vast majority of people are very respectful and very kind
Yeah.
at their core. And we do have some people like this is a very like safe haven place for a lot of like LGBTQI plus folks, like
Hmm.
all those marginalized groups that like again haven't felt safe in places like this before. And
Yeah.
if it's not a fit in that way where you're not able to respect our other community members, then that's when we have a conversation of, hey, this is how this runs. If this isn't something that interests you or something that you can respect, we can talk about a refund. We can talk about any sort of options, but that very rarely comes up. I've only had one or two conversations like that, and they've been like, "Hey, this just isn't a fit for me," and I've been like, "Okay, cool. I'll email Garrett, and we'll get you a refund, and um, you know,
Yeah.
go
We'll
our
move from
separate
there.
ways." Yeah,
Yeah. Again, so many similarities.
yeah, I'm
So,
sure. Yeah,
and again, thank you,
yeah.
so much for all of these. Um, and I think for those of us on our call too, every kind of region and location and the people we deal with in our communities, we're all different, right? So I
Mhm.
think finding that niche that it works for us and in our community fit,
Yeah.
is important too. Um, so you mentioned a couple of things here. Another question Chris had was, what geographical region do you serve, and how far do members travel to you? Does your uh, and is that uh, as part of their, how they join the tool library? Do their fees cover for your operating budget, or do you guys have to go out and apply and get grants? How does your funding sources work?
Yeah, totally. So, geographically, we're like right in the arts district of Denver. So, a lot of folks are local, which is great. So we have, easy transportation for stuff like that, and some easy public transport to get you to the area of the tool library and then walk a bit.
Yeah,
In terms of like income and grants, I don't have all of the specific numbers offhand, but
totally.
we do apply for grants, but a large portion of our income actually comes from uh, just our classes. We give most of the money to the teachers, but we get a small kickback percentage wise, and our membership. So those are like the primary ways that we get funded. Our workshop makerspace essentially pays for the maintenance of the equipment, and our workshop monitors who are also paid for their time. They're typically teachers that also wanted to be a little bit more involved. And so during our open workshop hours, they are there checking people in, checking people out, as well as making sure that everything's safe. And they're helpful people, so they're always helping people with projects. You know, yeah, so that's like our main breakdown. So we do have some funding through grants and different programs, but a lot of it is coming from our classes and our membership.
Oh, cool. Do you have any, I'm forgetting some of this, but do you have any partnerships with brands where you're working with them to kind of like maybe they sponsor a bunch of tools in your library and then you give them statistics on use or say, hey, you could make this much more repairable and this is how. I know some tool libraries are working on that stuff now. Have you folks delved into that at all?
We haven't delved much into it
Yeah,
to my knowledge. That's something that I really want to do.
yeah,
My other job is I'm a marketing manager for a county fair. And I do marketing
amazing.
and social media stuff and all that fun stuff. So any type of like sponsorship and like brand like partnership, I love. So I mean, I've thought like generally about that idea, but I don't think it's come up. We have had situations where tool brands, like small tool startups, will go out of business and they'll
Yeah,
essentially donate a lot of their stock to us. The vast majority of
cool.
our tools comes from folks just in the community coming and saying, "Hey, I have 3 table saws I no longer need because now I'm a member here, so I just use your guys' table saws. Take 2 of them, and I'll have one backup one."
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's amazing how the donations, once they get started, it just keeps going.
yeah,
Um, well, and on we have some folks coming in the future, especially some Europeans. Have a list of like 15 who are hopefully
mm,
going to get all in talking, and
yeah,
some of them really have been working closely with brands on the circular economy bit. So
mm,
if you join the
very cool.
listserv, we'll get you looped
Yeah,
in, and
yeah,
because then we
put
can
me
all
in.
learn and level up. We'll all level up together. This is what this is all about, right?
Totally.
Um, so cool. Okay. And also, Emily, about makerspaces, we are doing another one of these specifically on, I think there was a couple of different makerspaces are coming in to chat for our Lot Mutual Aid group to talk about that difference between what tools one could should what tools you might want to think about lending and what tools you might want to think about having more in a makerspace at a public library. So because it's just like tool libraries and just like library of things, they're interconnected, and you're going to find that fit that works for you.
Yeah.
So that's exciting in the future too. Well, that being noted, I know it's 4 o'clock. So I want to really respect your time, Zach, or 4 o'clock Eastern, a little different for you. But um, thank you so much. This has been so interesting to me, especially. And all of us, I'm really excited. We at the Gear, we're actually lending a pass to our Gear library, and it's
Mhm.
interesting, kind of the different cost model and the different way we made it happen. I think we might be presenting in November.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
if so, we'll share that too, just because I think again, what you were saying is going to impact us, and what hopefully we say will impact you, and we can all kind of
Mhm.
keep learning from each other. But folks, everyone, thank you all so very much for coming. We couldn't do these if folks didn't show up. And it's just amazing to have, Zach, me cold calling you and you being like, of course I'll share and I'll make a
Yeah.
presentation. Like, as you said, the world is really full of good people, and together we're coming up with these solutions that like make it better for everyone. You get more stuff to do more things. Yes,
Yeah.
win. So thank you so very much to you all, and I'll see you all soon, hopefully,
Yeah.
and be
Thank you
well.
so much. Yeah. Appreciate it.
All right.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Have a
everybody.
lovely night. Bye, everyone.